Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa. This is our opposition preview for Villa v Cardiff in the FA Cup. Delighted to be joined by Si from Cardiff City World. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good, mate. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great chatting to you. A club that I don't think we've played in recent years. So talk to me then what's been going on, all things Cardiff, recent years. How's the league form been going and just how's the ownership, etc., and where's the club at in this current state?
So on the pitch, it's been a rough few years, if I'm honest. Numerous managers, and just apart from last season, most of the seasons recently has been kind of on the brink of like a relegation battle without quite being dragged into it. We got lucky the one year where Reading had some points deducted, so that kept us safe. But Errol Bullock came in last year, did a very good job to a certain degree. Like, he stabilised the club. We finished 12th, which was all right, but the football was dire, if I'm honest. Like, it was really bad. It was not nice to watch, but there was a kind of promise in the summer that we'd sign some players and you would see that kind of evolve, and he would build on that stabilisation that I mentioned. But I think he got sacked after 6 games of the season. We had 1 point and 1 goal. And it was disappointing because in pre-season, he had set up with a much more attacking shape. We had the fullbacks like quite high. So like in possession, we were almost playing like a 2-3-5. It was really attacking. And then the first league game of the season, I think it was Preston off the top of my head. By half time, he had completely abandoned that, gone back to what we were doing last year, which was very sideways, backwards, not enjoyable. And we weren't creating, we weren't scoring, and we were conceding. So it was painful. It was not going to last for the long term. And it was strange because in the summer, we had a pretty good window. We brought in El Ghazi, we brought in Callum Chambers, both experienced, players, probably at their best, too good for the Championship, at their peaks. But so we had them too. And then we had Alex Robertson in from Man City, who's 21. And, I say all the time that we should just enjoy watching him play because he won't be with us for long. Signed him for 2 million, I think it was. And he's very, very good, especially for someone so young. So the window was positive. Unfortunately, we brought a striker in on loan, Wilfred Kanga, who was kind of the final piece to that jigsaw. And he didn't score. He went back in January to his, I think he's gone somewhere else now, but yeah, he didn't score, didn't look like scoring, didn't look like he wanted to be here. It was very disappointing, to say the least. But then again, in January, we've picked up 3 players who've all hit the ground running and all look like they can contribute. Omar Riza, who was appointed Errol Bullock's assistant manager in the summer, took over the job initially just for the time being. Then he got it till the end of the season due to the uptick in results, but more so the performances. I think we haven't quite had the results that our performances deserve at certain points. We've made sloppy mistakes at the back, which have cost us a lot of late goals. I think someone worked out that if you take away the goals conceded after 85 minutes, we're something like 10th in the league. So that's obviously a problem. But even Saturday, just gone, we were 1-0 up against Plymouth. We were really good, looking like you could just go on and comfortably win the game. And then Dimitris Gutas, who's our centre-back, or one of our centre-backs, got sent off like 5 minutes after half-time. So then it becomes a very different game. They scored about 10 minutes later. And then you come away with it thinking, God, we got a point. But we should have won that game. We should have put it to bed in the first half. And that's kind of been the story of the season. It's been a bit of like ifs and buts. But personally, I think Omar Riza has come in a situation where he was effectively set up to fail. I believe he was put in there to be the scapegoat if we went down. And I think he's done a pretty remarkable job of considering all things going on at the club. Off the field is shambolic. It's been like that, going way back to the rebrand, and ever since it is a problem. I think we're one of the few clubs who hasn't got a footballing structure above the team or above the management team. So what you have is you have the manager and the coaches, then you have the board and the owner, and there's not one football person in that group above the manager, which makes the football decisions. So it's problematic, obviously, when you've got businessmen making decisions on
Yeah,
football.
so you mentioned the manager Omar Riza. What's his sort of style of play then? How do you sort of set up game to game?
So one of the things that's impressed me about him is he's quite flexible. So this past weekend we played like a 3-4-2-1, but generally speaking, we play a 4-2-3-1. He looks to play with pace in the wide areas, and he does try and move the ball quickly and play the football in the final third. It's been refreshing after what we had sort of dished up for about 18 months, but it's not perfect. He's learning on the job. He's by far the finished article as a manager. He's very good with young players, and we've got a few in the first team squad, but also we've got a group coming through the academy who are sort of loosely pushing to get into that first team squad as well. He's good with those. That's obviously his sort of history within the game, is working with Watford youth and England youth. But there's a bit, I wouldn't say a split, but there's a certain percentage of the fan base who feel that we should have put an experienced manager in charge to make sure that we stay up. I'm kind of torn between the two, because I do believe that if we were to give him, a couple of years, I think he would do a good job. But we also financially cannot afford to go down, and it's a big risk to, no matter if you think your squad's good enough, to have a manager and a coaching staff that's so inexperienced is a risk, to say the least. But he does like to play good football, and that's the one good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. So we welcome to Villa Park El Ghazi back at Villa. We had really fond memories of him sort of guiding us out of the Championship. He scored in the playoff final. So how's he been playing for you? Does he play regularly, or is he a first teamer, squad player? And how's he been performing?
So when he signed, I was so excited, because I remember that season that he, when you guys were in the Championship, and he was like one of those players where he was just too good for the Championship. Like a bit like Tarat way back at QPR, and Peter Whitnam, just these sort of magicians who can do something out of nothing and have got that X factor. So I was super excited when we signed him. I thought it was such a needed signing. But when he came, he hadn't kicked a football for about, I think it was 18 months. It might be a little bit less than that. But he'd had a dispute with his former club over something football related, and he hadn't played. So it took him a long time to sort of get match fit. You could see glimpses of it, but he was nowhere near that sort of match sharpness and what you needed for 90 minutes. He then picked up an injury. When he came back recently against Millwall away, he came off the bench, and I said straight away he looked motivated, and he looked like a player who wanted to make a point and maybe repay the faith that Cardiff had shown in him. And he did look motivated. Hasn't quite happened for him. Like I said, there's been a lot of glimpses of what he could do. We haven't quite. I just think we haven't got him up to peak speed or full speed, if you like. I think, unfortunately, he runs out of contract at the summer. And I think if you ask me today to make that decision, and I think most fans, they'd probably say, can't keep him on what you've seen. But I think those same fans also appreciate that he hasn't played that much football. So if you can get him up to his peak, he's going to be a starter. He's going to be someone who causes mayhem in the Championship.
And what about Chambers and Robinson?
So Callum Chambers is a fascinating one. Again, I was quite excited when he came in. I thought that's a real clever signing. Could play right back and play centre back, and had also played in midfield previously as well. And he struggled a little bit when he came in. He was playing centre back, and teams were getting in behind him a lot, and he just seemed to struggle with the pace of the Championship a little bit. And I do think the Championship has changed in recent years. Last sort of 3 or 4 years, it's very much all the teams have like young, aggressive, physical, athletic players, and he just seemed to struggle with that intensity a little bit. he had some all right games, but he was having a bit of an issue, I think. But then, due to I think an injury at the time, he got moved by Omar Riza into sort of defensive midfield, and ever since then he's been immaculate. Every single game has been superb, and that was pre-Christmas, I think, or around that Christmas period. He has been a real find in that midfield area, and he's probably one of the first names. Well, he was one of the first names on the team sheet up until we just signed a midfielder from Ajax on loan, who's far too good for the Championship, in my opinion. So that's the only sort of competition he's got, though, because we sold our other defensive midfielder. But Callum Chambers has been, I've been really impressed with him in midfield. He's also like getting forward as well. He scored a couple of goals just around the edge of the box. He's technically so good, and he's got such a clean strike of the ball that it's quite handy to have someone who can do the defensive work, but also, if it does drop to him around the edge of the box, he can strike it as well. Callum Robinson's an interesting one. Last year, if you'd asked me, with 5-6 games to go in the season, I think I might have even said it on one of my shows, you won't see him in a Cardiff shirt again. He'd fallen out with the manager, didn't look happy, was unfit, just everything which you can possibly think of going wrong, like on the field, off the field, everything. But him and Errol Bullitt had a heart-to-heart, I think, either at the end of the season or in the early pre-season. And by the time he came back to the sort of pre-season friendlies, he just looked leaner, he looked motivated, he looked happy. And ever since then, I think it's without a doubt it's been his best season in the Cardiff shirt. And again, up until recently, where we signed a striker in January, he would have been the first name on the team sheet. I do think we look better as a team when he's in the team, because he sort of runs in behind and he gives us that pace through the central sort of striking area to just cause teams a bit more of an issue. My pet hate with him is sometimes he drops a bit too deep because he wants to get on the ball, which you can't criticize too much because he wants to get involved and help his teammates. But I do feel that we get more out of the team and more out of him when he sort of plays on the last man and runs the channels and things like that. But yeah, he's been great. 10 goals this season. Fully deserved his new contract as well. And hope that he'll go on and kick on from that, because I think he's got a lot to give Cardiff over the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about Callum Chambers, because I remember last year he hadn't played football for us for ages, and Emery just stuck him in midfield for our last home game against Liverpool. And he came on with so much energy, and he sort of galvanised us to get the 3-3 draw. So, yeah, we're used to playing him at like right back, centre back, and that. But midfield was, I always felt like that was his sort of position, really. So we're in the FA Cup then, last 16. How's your FA Cup run been? Who have you been playing? Who have you been knocking out the FA Cup?
Yeah, the FA Cup's a big one for Cardiff. Obviously, we won it way back in the day. But for me personally, like I'm 43 now, and I never expected to ever see Cardiff in a cup final, at Wembley. Like that's like dreams. And we got to the FA Cup final. I forget the year now, 2007, I want to say. But it was like, that was just like a dream come true. It was something which I never thought I'd be doing. And we should have won it as well against Portsmouth. And then obviously we played Liverpool in the Carling Cup final a few years later and lost on penalties. But in terms of this year, that the FA Cup is special. Like, I really believe that. And I think we played Stoke in our most recent game and it ended up going to penalties. We were, I think, 2 or 3-0 up. Oh, no, we were 2-0 up. They got it back to 3-2. We got it back to 3-3. But we've heavily rotated the FA Cup team. It's been a lot of youngsters, which has been good because we've got this, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a crop of youngsters coming through who are, highly rated. It'll be interesting what side we go with, because we had a game Saturday, we've got a game tomorrow, and then we've got another game on against you guys on Friday. And it was like, obviously they moved the game, didn't they, to help you guys with your Europe, Champions League run. And flipping, we got a game on Tuesday against our biggest relegation rival, like the team right by us in the relegation battle. which seems a bit harsh to have 3 games in 6 days. But it is what it is. It's the championship, isn't it? But I will be interested in what he does, because I think he's kind of rotated a lot in the FA Cup, and he has given youngsters a go. And it's when you play the bigger teams, do you stick with that, or do you try and go a bit stronger? Aaron Ramsey's played his second game back from injury on Saturday, but he played 105 minutes because of the injury time. So I'd be amazed if he plays tomorrow. I think he's more likely to start on Friday, but I think it'll be a mix. I think the spine will probably be relatively experienced with a few of the younger players, maybe at fullback and stuff like that. But it is. I'm looking, but can't wait. I can't wait. I'm gutted I couldn't go, because I got a radio thing on earlier in the day, which I just can't switch. So I'm disappointed. All my friends are going. All the people who do stuff for Cardiff City World are going. So it's just me on my own. So I'm a bit gutted about that.
Yeah, it's a shame you've been left out. But if it makes you feel better, we've got a game on Tuesday anyway. So
is it? That's all right then.
We got Palace, so we're sort of in the same. Yeah, it's away as well, so same boat as you. So I feel like with the two teams playing, I think we need to mention Peter Whittingham. How good was he for you? He played over like 400 times for you, so he must go down as a player that's right up there within Cardiff players that have played that amount of games in the modern era.
He's, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions, he's the best championship midfielder or championship player which has ever played in the championship. He's just so magical and so good. And he's also one of those players, by the way, who at the time, sometimes people would watch him, what it's like with fans in the stand and social media and stuff, and they'd say things like, "Oh, what does he do? He just did the simple things so well." And then suddenly he would just produce something so out of this world that you were like just looking at it thinking, what and how has he done that? And there's so many different times that he did it for Cardiff. He loved the club. The fans just loved him. And like I said, for me, he's one of the true championship greats. And in some ways, it's a shame that he didn't go and show what he could do in the Premier League. But from a Cardiff point of view, we're just very grateful that we had him for so long, and very grateful that we just had him not just as a footballer, but as a human being as well. I'm lucky enough that I'm quite friendly with people who knew him really well. And he's just a great guy,
Yeah, what a legend. So what are your thoughts on Aston Villa, how we've been doing in sort of the Emery era?
I think Emery's a proper manager. I think he's so underrated. Like, you look at his record in Europe and you look at what he did with Villa, like, you guys this makes me laugh, actually. Someone the other day in my Twitter feed said, "Oh, Swansea should go and get Steven Gerrard as their manager." And I was just like, Jesus, did none of you watch like what he did with Villa? Like, Emery came in with the same squad and just instantly had him going from fighting against relegation to, up in the top sort of 8 and stuff. And like, I think he's a phenomenal manager, and I really like the squad he's built as well. Another interesting thing is I do a podcast on a Sunday for Ace Podcast Nation with Rodri Giggs, who's a United fan. So we've talked about Marcus Rashford a lot, and I watched him over the weekend, and the difference in his body language and his work rate and how he looks on the ball it's like night and day. And I think there was no doubt that he's a quality player, but it was just, there was something not right. Like, he just looked unhappy, but not like he was sulking necessarily. He just looked sad. And like, for me, for someone who's got everything, I think, I'm not a United fan, so it doesn't really bother me, but like, I can imagine it was quite frustrating for United fans to see one of their homegrown guys just look sad while he's living the dream of them. But also, you're not getting the best out of the player. So from a human point of view, I'm really pleased that he's able to go to Villa and he just looks like himself again. But I know Rodri thinks he's only doing that because he wants to go to Barcelona or or whoever. But for you guys, I think it's a really clever signing because not only have you signed a player who could contribute to you between now and the end of the season, you also agreed a 40-odd million pound fee, which if he does enjoy his time at Villa, might, and if he wants to stay in the Premier League, that's a good fee for him because I think he's probably worth more than that. But he's not the only player. You guys he sprung to mind because I was talking about him again last night. I really like Ramsey. I do from Villa. Like I just think he's a special player. And who's the young lad who plays in central midfield for you?
Rodgers.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, he is. He looks like he's going to be something special as well. But you've got these players. You've got a real good mix of experience and then players like him who are just burst on the scene. And then you sign that striker who's just scored a load of goals in a short space of time and then sold him to Saudi for obscene money. Like, it's good business ultimately, isn't it? Like, I'm sure you guys would have liked to have kept him, but it's sign him for not much and sell him for loads is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, good words, mate. Good words. So finally then, how do you think the game's gonna go? What can we expect from you guys at Villa Park?
Well, I think it's a no-lose situation for Cardiff, really, because no one's expecting us to win. No one's expecting us to get anything out of it. We've bought all the tickets up. The City fans will be absolutely bouncing, so the atmosphere should be really good on Friday. Sometimes you get these games on a Friday where it's on TV, people don't want to travel, stuff like that. So I'm glad to see that those tickets were just snapped up so quickly. They didn't even go on general sale. They were signed, sold, bought up by season ticket holders and members and whatnot. So I think the atmosphere will be wicked. I'd be lying if I said it's not going to be an extremely difficult game for Cardiff. But the FA Cup is funny. I've seen it with Cardiff. I've seen it with other clubs. We've all seen it over the years. If you're not at it or you rotate a little bit and you're not at it and the team you play are, because they've got no pressure on them, it can become a bit ropey. Years ago, we played Leeds when they were top of the Premier League and they had Rio Ferdinand and Alan Smith and Viduka and all these players. They played them all at Ninian Park and they just froze in the atmosphere. Now, I don't expect Villa to do that. It's their ground. They're going to be comfortable. They're going to be happy. I think a lot of it, how the game goes, will come down to what both managers do with the squad in selections, how much they rotate. Because I could see it being, I'm going to be really boring now, but I could see it being a bit of a damp squid if both teams end up rotating like all 11 players and you have a load of squad players on both teams who haven't really played a lot of football and it's all a bit disjointed. I would like to see a kind of both teams go quite strong with like one or two youngsters and have a real sort of cup tie of it and just see what happens. But it's going to be difficult for us. We know that. So it is what it is. I think I was going to say, I think we'll play three at the back, but we haven't got any centre backs fit. So who knows? We might end up playing one at the back and doing something like that. But no, it should be good though. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good game. I just hope that because the pressure's off Cardiff, no one's expecting us to go and win. We can just go and give a good account of ourselves because when we do just go and play football, we do look all right this year.
Brilliant, mate. Well, it's been great chatting to you, hearing everything about Cardiff and what's been going on. And, it's a club that I didn't really know much about. So you've gained me some extra knowledge. So what I'll do is I'll tag you on all of the socials and Villa fans can go and check out your socials as well. So cheers for coming on, mate, and all the best for the rest of the season.
No worries. Thanks for the invite, mate. Cheers.